Well, my name is Alan Black, and I am a professional author. That's my profession. My business is selling my books. And Billy Joy and Janine Scott asked me to come and speak about the business of selling. And I'm going to talk briefly about these four subjects. God first, yeah, even in our business of writing. Number two, anybody know what E&E is? Yeah, I know. She'll tell you that it's escape and evasion, but that's an entirely different animal. Entertainment and education. Then we're going to talk briefly about marketing. Just briefly, because marketing is a huge subject. And then the business of being a writer. The business of being an author. And one of the reasons that Billy Joy and Janine asked me to share on this is I am an independently published author, and it's kind of bragging, but yes, I am successful. Not just because I've got 15 books published, but financially successful as well. In this past year, I made almost twice as an author what I did on any other job that I ever had working for somebody else. I'm not going to get into specific numbers because sometimes as writers, you'll have big months and you'll have small months, but it all balances out. So, God first. And the reason I wanted to mention this is one of my favorite biblical verses is 3 John 2, which says, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth." God is talking to us. We're his beloved. He wants us to prosper. And if you look at this word prosper, we're not going to go into the Greek and do all of that study. That particular word prosper means to have prosperity in all things. So even in our business, we look to God who will help us prosper. Okay, now I've got marks on the floor. Okay. And now, number 2, E&E, education and entertainment. And the reason I put these up here is, why are we writing what we write? Only 2 reasons that we do it. Unless you're doing it just for the fun of it and it's not a business and you're never going to publish and nobody will ever see it. We're writing for entertainment and education. And we need to decide as business people what we're doing with what we're producing. Are we entertaining? Are we educating? Or are we doing a combination of both? Which is your sheep thing. Is entertainment as well as education. But we need to determine what we're going to do. What are we producing? What are we writing? Because what we produce is what we sell. And if you look at any other retail business, they don't put just one thing on a shelf. All right? We have multiple things that they offer. You go into Costco. Costco has 4,000 things on their shelf. If you go into Fry's or Safeway, they have 110,000 items on the shelf. As authors, we will have 1, 2, 3, 15, 35. Depends on how we produce and what we produce. But what we offer will do entertainment or education. And that was the question earlier that Billy Joy had asked, is what genre are we writing? You're not stuck with one genre, because you go into Costco and you can buy milk and you can buy diamonds. It depends on what you're looking for. So, what are we producing? And that's something that you need to decide if you want to make money at this. if you want to make money. That's the question, all right? You want to get paid for what you write. You want to publish what you write. And how do you want to publish? Because there are, basically today, there are 4 ways to publish a book. You, as the author, have the wonderful choice of which quadrant to choose. 20 years ago, we didn't have this choice. The first way is traditional publishing. This is the way books have been published since Euripides. You find an agent, you give it to somebody, while Euripides probably handed it to a group of monks who went in the back room and copied it down. But these days you find an agent who will then take your book and shop it around to a publisher, who will then publish. You have independent, and that's the way I do it. I publish independently. I don't have an agent. I don't traditionally publish. I do it all myself. There are benefits to both of these. Now, when you're looking at traditional, you have large traditional and small press traditional. Large press traditional, there are really only 5 big presses left. All of the smaller ones that you see in Barnes & Noble, they're all owned by these bigger press. If you go to a small traditional, and there's a number of them out there that are very good, there are a number out there that are very bad. You just need to be very careful. If you go to a small press and they want you to pay them to publish your manuscript, don't walk away, run away. You don't need to pay them. If all of this is designed so that money flows to you, not the other way around. And then you have e-version, which is electronic publication only. And I will tell you this is just my opinion. Do not do just that. Do not get into just e-version publishing only. Because when you do any of these, you will want to include an e-version when you do it. Now, this is part of the marketing. Jump just slightly ahead. If you're in the business of selling your books, you want to sell every possible media that's available. I have my print books out here. Every print book I have is also available on e-version, on Amazon. It's on Kindle. A couple of them are also available on audiobook. Now, getting it made into a movie is an entirely different thing. But when you market your book, if you go into Safeway, how many sizes of the ketchup that you buy do they make? 6, 7, it's all the same ketchup, just different size bottles. It depends on what the people want. Excuse me. So when we are determining what we're going to do, what genre we're going to write, we need to look at our ultimate outcome. Where are we going with it? And there are advantages to each of these. I'm not going to get into the advantages and the disadvantages. For me, I chose independent, so I can get a print copy, I get an e-version copy, and I can generate an audio version should I so desire. Excuse me just a second. Thank you. Because marketing is what we do to sell our books. And that's the third thing that I wanted to briefly touch on. And I just say briefly because Marketing is a challenge for writers. Not only a matter of getting up and getting out and doing it. Most of us are writers because we want to sit alone in a little room and write our stories. We don't want to have to go out and talk to people. I'm not good at talking to people. I'm not comfortable standing in front of a room full of beautiful women and telling you my stories. This is marketing, by the way. This is part of marketing. And I will put this down on my schedule of activities as marketing activity for what I do. Because I do this full time. I keep track of how much time I spend writing, how much time I spend marketing. If you have one book, and your book has been published, and good luck, I sincerely hope you get a big press. You will spend, even with a big traditional publisher, 50% of your time marketing, 50% of your time writing your next book. It's all about your next book. You will be writing your next book while you're marketing your last one. Now, I have 15 books out. I still spend 50% of my time marketing and 50% of my time in writing activities. Now, for me at this point, writing activity is not all just writing a rough draft, writing a story. It is involved in rewrites and editing and re-editing and re-editing and re-editing upwards of 17 times. Okay, this is not going, you're just going to have to get my audio, not so much the video. I'll try and stay here, but it won't happen. But marketing is everything that you do to put your book and your name, your brand, in front of a potential reader. Potential. Marketing isn't actually putting them out here and saying, okay, afterwards I want you all to come take a look at my books and buy them all. That's sales. Marketing is I want you to know Alan Black and he has books. And the next time you're out looking at books, looking for something to buy, looking for something to read, you will say, oh, Alan Black, I've heard that name before. He must be a good writer. I'll buy one of his. You may not even remember that you met me here. But I want you to remember Alan Black. We're branding you, not just that one book. Because you will write a second book, right? You will put a second book of poetry out there once you have your first one. I'm assuming everybody wants to do more than one. Anybody who wants to do one and you're done? No. Because frankly, I didn't start making money until my sixth book hit the market. I made money, but it was small money. I mean, you couldn't even go to McDonald's, small money. But I hit my sixth book and things started to change. People began to recognize me as an author. It was like they went into my bookstore on Amazon, my author page, and instead of one size of ketchup, I offered not only that size of ketchup in multiple sizes, but I offered spicy ketchup. I offered the organic ketchup. I offered that weird blueberry ketchup. So they began to see he's done more than one. So, marketing, how do we do marketing? I gave out my business card, and on my business card there is my website address, which is not that hard to remember. It is alanblackauthor.com. If you go there and under frequently asked questions, there is a tab that says marketing suggestions or marketing tips. I have 49 different ideas for marketing. Excuse me, that I have gathered over the last couple of years. Some of these tips work for me, and some haven't. Some will work for you and some might not. It's up to each individual author to look at those marketing tips and determine which I'm going to do and which will work. I suggest you try them all, but keep track of which works and which doesn't. I keep a spreadsheet. This worked, this didn't. Excuse me. Or I put so much money into this one, I didn't get any return, I'm not doing it again. And many of the things in marketing don't cost you anything except time and effort. Now, we move down to the business. And the reason I kind of rushed through these other things to get me to this part is how do we make a living at writing? Now, we looked at these goals up here, and I got to tell you, this is an impressive set of goals. I walk over here without falling down. This is an honest goal. This goal is written down. I will write and publish, I'll come back, 4 books this year. Now, the reason I say that I can do that, and the first thing that I had to learn in order to obtain this goal and to meet this goal, is how fast do I write? Excuse me, how many of you know how fast you write? Your rough draft. How many words per hour? Okay, that is the first thing I want you to know. Now, this is for novels, for fiction, or even non-fiction, not so much poetry, because I realize poetry is more of a, I don't want to use the word inspiration, but it is more of a thought process than writing a fictional story. I had to learn how fast I write a rough draft, because that is key. Excuse me. We didn't humidify the air today, did we? Sorry. I write, a little pat on the back here, 1,000 words an hour. So, as a full-time writer, I can write a 100,000 word novel, which in science fiction or mystery or romance or crime thriller, 100,000 words is what you're shooting for. I can do that, a rough draft, in 100 hours. But I do this full time. So I know that I can set aside 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, and I can write a rough draft of a story in a month. It's different for each of you because you all have families, you have jobs, you have schools that you go to, you have husbands, boyfriends, babies take up time. But you need to know how much time you've got and how fast you can write. Then what you need to do is you say, okay, I am going to write, I'm going to write a novel, 30 days. Now this is mine. I have, strangely enough, excuse me, this is my, I have another one. This is my 2016 and 2017 production schedule. Yes, it's a production schedule because it's got assignments, who does it, what time they start, what time I expect them to be done. That's why I have an editor, because I can't talk straight, I can't write straight. When's the due date, what the task is, and how long it takes to do it. And I have this written down. These are written goals. Write these down. Give yourself a due date. This is a copy I just printed out. But normally it hangs on the wall in my office. When something gets completed, I mark it off. Because right now we are working on my next book. In order to hit 4, I've got to be working on my next one now. But you need to learn the steps of everything that you do. 30 days, and this is a rough draft. Because after my rough draft, it goes to beta readers. And how many beta readers you have and how long it takes you is up to you. I have finally gotten a group of 4 beta readers who read the genres that I write and who are not afraid to offend me. That is a key with beta readers. I learned a long time ago, if I just copied the phone book, my mother would love it. Best thing she ever read. So you can't take it to mom. I can't even give them to my wife. I must give it to people who, and believe me, she's not shy about offending me. But I give it to people who will read it and say, what the heck were you thinking? You know, what is wrong with you? You can't do that. You can't have, and honestly, this is one of the complaints. I've got 2 men and 2 women. Both of the women said, you cannot have a sex scene in the shower between a human and an alien. It's offensive. Who knew? I'm a guy. I didn't think so. But they were honest enough to say, this doesn't work for this part of your audience. And who is my audience? People who read science fiction. Do only men read science fiction? No. Large segment of the female population reads science fiction. You need to, when you're writing your rough draft, you need to know who you're writing for. Paulette was telling me that she just wrote a short story, but before she even wrote it, she read the magazine, their guidelines, what they wanted, what they read, what their clientele is. What if she's going to submit it to them? That's her audience. And we all learned this in college. In college, you write for the professor. Right, wrong, or indifferent, you're writing for the guy who's giving you the grade. But when you're writing this, we are writing for our readers. And your beta readers need to be part of the segment of what you're submitting. If you write new adult romance, you want new adult romance readers as your beta readers. Every genre has a rhythm and a vocabulary. And you pick your genre. Does anybody know how you pick your best genre? What do you read? That's the genre you write. What do you like to read? If you like to read poetry, you write poetry. If you like to read romance, you write romance. If you like to read romance about Russian military in the 1900s, that's what you write. You've got a small population who's going to buy it, but nonetheless, that's what you write. And that's how you select your beta readers. And how much time you give them depends on how rude and pushy you can be. They're going to be rude to me, so I'm going to push right back. I give them 30 days. Now, you keep lists of beta readers. Sometimes it takes, 6 weeks to even get connected to them, and then another 6-8 weeks for them to read it. How much time do you have? I give mine 30 days. And then I give myself, after it comes back, and they've scribbled all over my manuscripts, they, for lack of a better word, vomited all of their opinions back all over me. I go back in and rewrite. I give myself 14 days to do a rewrite. I know the story. Before they even see it, I've written the rough draft. I've probably rewritten the rough draft before I gave it to them half a dozen times. I know the story very well. I know how to change it, where to change it, and what to do with it by the time it gets back to the rewrite. After I get back with the rewrite, it goes to an editor. And I give that editor 30 days. When it comes back from this editor, I give myself no time at all to fix the mistakes. Because I'm all over it by now. I mean, I've done this, I've seen this story so many times, I'm already tired of looking at it. So I'm going to do it fast. However long it takes, sometimes it's taken me, 2 whole days. But I don't even put that on my schedule. After it comes back from this, then it goes to my chief editor. And I give her 30 days. Now, why do I give more time for editing and beta reading than I do writing the rough draft? Because to me, that's more important. A beta reader is going to tell me where the plot holes are, where the gaps are, where my story doesn't hold up. They're going to tell me that in chapter 5, I said Tom couldn't jump over the fence in the backyard because he's too fat. But I never told them that Tom was too fat until chapter 5. They had a different mental picture of Tom from chapter 1 when I first introduced him. So I have to go back in and say Tom is chubby, which is a quick fix, but the beta readers are going to tell me. Editors are going to polish what I do. This editor is a line editor, developmental editor, grammar, proofreader. Wherever you believe you need the help, you're going to get somebody to do this. My chief editor, her main purpose is to make sure it reads correctly, that my style comes through, and that gun I used has or does not have a safety. That the town on the map is in the right place. Her job is to research every little thing in there and make sure that it is correct. Because if I put that gun in the wrong, if I put running boards on a 1920 Cadillac and they hadn't put running boards on by then, she's going to tell me and I will have to fix that. All right, then after I get done with that, then we do formatting, cover, and then submission. Now, this is what I do because I am responsible for all of this all the way down. These don't have too much time because it doesn't take me long to format a book anymore. And the cover, I am not artistically inclined, so I subcontract that out to a company that does cover art and design the cover. And then the submission to, I use CreateSpace, which I find you can publish on CreateSpace for zero money. They don't cost anything. You can get a print version and you can get an e-version at no cost for any type of written word that you want. I will caution you, your editors and your cover art, unless you're very good at do it yourself, they may cost you. You want your cover art to be the best that it can be. You want it attractive. How many of us buy, when we go in to buy ketchup, we buy the one with the plain black and white label? Anybody? Yeah, I'm cheap, but I'm not buying that stuff either. Okay. Pretty labels. All right. Your cover has absolutely one job on a cover. Your whole cover, I will use this one. Your whole job of a cover, whether it is in a physical bookstore or whether it's online, this is what the people will see. Well, unless it's in Barnes and Noble, then all they see is that. Okay. They will see this. This whole front cover, the whole point is so that they pick it up and read the back. The whole back, the blurb, its only point is to get them to pick it up and look inside. That's it. So for science fiction, this is not a great example because most science fiction has spaceships on the cover. Because that's what it is. If you write romance, you'll have a half-naked cowboy on the cover. Whether there's a half-naked cowboy in the book or not, doesn't matter, that's what's on the cover. Okay? You look and see what your other genres offer. That's how you find what best fits for a cover. So it may cost you to get a cover. By the way, this cover cost me nothing. I have got a grandniece who drew the picture of the cowboy boot with the spaceship on it. She was 8 years old when she drew it and sent it to me. I said, okay, we'll put it on the cover. Had her grandmother put it on a cowboy boot and then did the picture on the back and laid that out for me. So it didn't cost me anything. But there are companies out there where you can buy good covers, pre-made, that they'll put your stuff on, reasonably priced. You can have them custom made. You can pay tens of thousands of dollars if you want. You can get a cover at no cost through CreateSpace. They have 5-6 pages of generic covers. I don't suggest you use them because you want your book to stand out, and theirs are so generic that if you look anytime on Amazon, you'll see half a dozen people with the exactly same cover, and you don't really want to do that unless, like I did on one of my series where all 6 of them had very similar covers, because it is a series. So, this is a production schedule, and I assign each of these things tasks to somebody. They're goals. These are my goals. Now, if you add it through and add all of this up, this takes 6 months to go from here to here. But I'm going to do 4 in a year. So how can I do that? Well, when these are out at editing or at beta readers, I'm writing my next one. It has to layer in order to get 4. I have time to do that because I can do it that quickly, and that's the key to knowing what you can produce in a year is how fast you can write. And that's really entirely up to you. It depends on what your goals are. But you need to know so that you can determine, here's what I've got to do in order to reach my goal. Setting a goal doesn't do you any good unless you have the steps there to do it. Now,
Can you say that again?
no, I hit the playback. Setting a goal doesn't do you any good unless you have written down the steps to attain that goal. I don't think that's exact words, but thereabouts I think we're close. Now, this is a business. How many people in here have run a business before? All right. You wrote a business plan. You had a business model. I do too. If you're expecting and wanting to make money in the business of being a writer, you need to have a business plan. Your first step in a business plan is to write a vision statement and a mission statement. Now, my vision statement, a vision statement is where you want to go. Basically, that's it. Where you want to go. And my vision statement is, we want our readers amazed that they missed sleep because they could not put down one of our books. We want our readers amazed we made them laugh on one page and cry on the next. We want to give our readers a pleasurable respite from the cares of the world for a few hours. We want to offer stories we want to read. That's my vision for what I'm doing. I want to make money at it, yes. But that is my vision for being a professional author. Now, we write down a mission statement. And a mission statement is more active. It is something that is more current today, right now. Our business, this is my mission statement, our business is to write top-notch imaginative novels of all genres to capture a reader's attention and enjoyment. We will cater to readers of all ages. We will work to stimulate readers and authors to greater imaginative efforts. Now, then I have my business plan. And my business plan is pretty detailed. It covers all of this. It covers who I am, what my responsibilities are to my business, what my chief editor's responsibilities are, what I expect from anybody that I subcontract. And I do subcontract. That's what editors and cover are, is subcontracting. Many of you may want to subcontract out formatting. By the way, I will help anybody in here without charge for formatting or submission. You have my business card, get in touch with me. I'm glad to help. In addition to all of this, I have marketing analysis. What I will do specifically to market my books. That includes speaking engagements. That includes this little flyer that I handed out for Saturday. Janine and I will be sharing a book signing event Saturday the 23rd. There's information on the back in case you didn't see it. It is a book release party. I love marketing where you can bring cake. To me, that's just the whole point of marketing. If you don't enjoy it, maybe you should be working the drive-thru at Burger King, you know? I'm not comfortable speaking in front of groups, but I push myself to do it because this is part of marketing. This is part of my business. Now, in addition to all of that, I have my goals. I will tell you these goals were written, the ones in here were written, and I saved them in here because these goals were written when I wrote my business plan, when I published my first book. The top goal, and the reason I saved this is my top goal by the end of that year, I had beat the top goal by 11 times the amount of what I expected, ever. All right. So, historical goals are fun to look at. But know this, when you write and when you market your books as a business, and yourself as a business, because we are selling ourselves, you will be successful. Now, just a little caveat to being successful. Nobody knows how many new books are published every year. Nobody knows anymore. The numbers are somewhere between 1 million that Amazon says and 1.7 million, which is estimated off of all internet published books. That's a lot of new books every year. Even just straight million is a lot of books. Our one book is going to get lost in that. All right, somebody in here may be the next Harper Lee and write the next To Kill a Mockingbird. Write one book and it's your whole career, and you could live off the royalties of that one book forever without ever having to ever do anything. It's possible. That isn't me. That's not going to happen to me. So if you're expecting to give your book, one book, put it out there and sit back and quit your job, don't do it. Okay, don't quit yet. All right, until you have, and that was one of my goals. When could I quit? What level of money did I have to have before I could quit my regular job and do this full time? That was one of my goals that I had set, which I have since met and passed that goal. But the average number of books an author sells is unknown as well. That number is anywhere between 250 books and 500 books. That's average. And that includes those guys like James Patterson, J.K. Rowling, Stephen King, who sells 1 million books. Puts one out and sells 1 million. So many people aren't going to sell anything because they put that book out there and then they go back to watching television. Right? That's why this is a business. If you want to publish just one and say, I'm a published author, that's great. That's your goal if that's what you want. But if you want money in your pocket, you're going to have to do some of these business things. And that's my caveat to being successful. Now, I've got about 15 minutes left, and I wanted to open it up for any kind of questions. If you had one related to marketing, business, or even just general in writing, I'll be glad to answer your questions. Yes?
You said you got it on audio. How did you do the audiobook?
Strangely enough, Amazon owns a company.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, how did I get one of my books on audio? And Amazon owns a company called ACX. Now, when you go into Amazon, go all the way to the bottom of the page. There's a list of countries, Australia, Netherlands, Mexico. Those are where all of their distribution points are for Amazon. Go below that, there's a list of companies that Amazon owns. And in the middle of there, there's a link to ACX, which is audio something. You can take your book and submit it. Now, there are different ways to submit your book. One is you could submit it and say, I'm willing to pay somebody $5,000 or $6,000 to make this an audio book. And then you take all of the royalties. The way I did it was I submitted the book and said, I will split my royalties, which is about a 40% royalty on a $21 audiobook. I will split that 50-50 with whoever produces the audiobook. And then I had producers who sent me audio files. I submitted a section actually of this book, and they read it back to me. So I could hear the voices, and I chose one. This one's Titanium Texican. Strangely enough, I got a guy who was from Texas, so he had the right accent to begin with. Even though he did amazing accents, that was it matched up very well. He did all of the production, put it on there, everything was listed. That was the last thing I had to do except get my paychecks. And I get paid every month for just that submission.
Oh, okay,
Now, he gets half my royalties and I get half.
but still,
That's, basically, it's 20% of a book that's, I think, it's $21 on audio.
but still.
And I didn't have to do nothing.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I did have another one where I did have a company that they contacted me and said they want one of my books. And I didn't have to do anything. I didn't even have to submit it. They bought the book and they chose the narrator and they did everything for me and I didn't pay anything. They just put it up and I just get royalty checks.
Do you think that's because you already submitted one book, they have to take a look at it?
No, this was it was a completely different book that the person that contacted me was their executive vice president. He said the president and owner of the company had read my book and liked it so much. This was like the first week the book was out. He liked it so much he wanted me under contract. So I did that one contract with him and there again, I didn't have to do anything. Royalties come in. Yes.
I have a question on ISBN number.
Yes.
Does the author subscribe and get it, or where's it fit in the business of writing?
An ISBN number is actually kind of like a book's serial number. And there's two ways to go. One is, if you're traditionally published, your publisher will assign their ISBN number to it. You don't have to worry about it. And actually, if you're traditionally published, your production schedule stops right here. That's all you have to do. The publisher takes care of the rest of that. But you have a different production schedule that will say agent, which is a challenge in itself. So, but as independently published, I have two ways to go. One, I can go to, I think the company's name is Bowker, and buy ISBN numbers. They're expensive. I think you can buy 10 different ISBN numbers for $500. But when you go through CreateSpace, they have a little box that said, you want one for free? Yeah, I'll take the free one. There's a little box in there that says if you want a free one, they will assign you a free one. And I take the free one. Now that does tell anybody who knows ISBN numbers that it is coming through CreateSpace, that it is an Amazon company that has published it. But I sell my books on Amazon. I'm not shy about having my books with that ISBN number. And when you go to Kindle, they will assign an ISBN number. So you can go either direction, buying your own, and a lot of people like their own. That's entirely up to you. I'm too cheap. I will actually take the freebie every time. Yes?
Do you actually have stacks of books yourself to sell, or is it a
Yes, I need a
print on
bigger
demand,
office.
or- Yeah.
The last time I calculated it, 99.974% of all of my sales came from ebooks. My science fiction pays the bills. Science fiction readers like ebooks. To begin with, an ebook is $2.99. This book is $14.95. I suppose most science fiction people are like me. I'm taking the cheap one. So, however, that is one reason I say don't go just electronic, even though the majority of my sales are. This is a marketing tool. I could not do a book release party and have just tell people, okay, now you're here at my party, here's a piece of cake, now go to Kindle and buy my book. Bring your Kindle in, I'll sign it. You know that there is an app for author signature that will tag an author's signature to a book in a Kindle? Yeah.
Do you know what you're talking
I have no clue. I've never actually seen it, I've read about it, but there is an app where you can get it and have somebody autograph a Kindle. But when I go and do book signing events, and I do, because of science fiction, I go to Comic-Cons. I'll be at Phoenix Comic-Con, Tucson Comic-Con, and I'm not going to be presenting my books this year, but we are going to the Silicon Valley Comic-Con this year. I'm not doing it because I'm not carrying 16 or 17 books to California. Because when I go, I take not just the 16 or 17, but I take 5 or 10 copies of each one. Because some people still like print. So I have copies of all of my print books around to send off to reviewers. I have fans from around the country who say, send me an autographed, personalized book. I had a guy from Texas who did his Christmas shopping with me this year. You know, this is to my mother-in-law, so sign these 2 books, you know, to Dorothy, you know, from him, you know, with my signature on it. And then I shipped it off to him. But you have to have that book as well in hand. So, that answer your question? Yes, and I have way too many. My office is too small for them now. Any other questions? We've only got about 6 minutes, so.
When you print your books, do you print them more on demand, or do you get a bulk thing and say, I'm gonna print 50 of this book right now and have it?
I used to do it on demand as I needed 5 or 10. But in order to defray the shipping costs, I buy them in bundles of 30, 40, or 50. Simply because that cuts the actual cost down. Because when you're making this a business, your cost of inventory, you want that as small as possible. You don't want to make this as cheap as possible. That's fairly small print, right? I've had them smaller than that to save money. Don't do it. You still want this readable, right? Legible, readable? Both. But anywhere you can shave off cost is going to be a benefit to you. An example, when I do a book release party or a book signing event at a bookstore, that bookstore is still going to take a commission for running my book through their cash register. Now, I provide the books, but they're providing all of the taxing and all of that. So you kind of have to keep that, you know, rule of thumb is find out what your book is going to cost you. And Create Space will tell you that right up front. Here's how many pages, here's the size, here's how much it'll cost. And then you mark your book up 3 times that amount. And that will make you profitable. Yes?
Are your books standalone, or do I have to read the first one to figure out what's happening in the last one?
That's an excellent question. Are my books standalone, or do you have to read them all? No, you have to buy all 15. No, it depends. I started out swearing I would never write a series. Didn't stay that way for very long. I have a Christian historical fiction set in 1920 in the Ozark Mountains. I wrote The Friendship Stones with my mother while she was going through chemotherapy. There was something the doctor said to keep her mind off of the chemotherapy and radiation, give her something to think about, get up in the morning instead of just her illness. So we wrote this book. I figured, okay, it was a challenge. We wrote one book, but she was still going through it by the time we finished because I'm too fast. And she said, oh, we're not done. So now I've got 6 of them in that series. But that series is finished. This one is a standalone book. I do have a science fiction series that I wrote a science fiction book. It hit #1 on Amazon. And I had so many people come back to me and say, okay, where's the sequel? Yeah, okay. All right, if you're gonna offer me money, I'm gonna take it. So I wrote a sequel. And they're saying, okay, where's the next one? You know, so I'm writing the next one. But most of my books are standalone, with those 2 exceptions. All right, I am out of time, basically. I want to thank Billy Joy and Janine for inviting me to do this. This has been fun. And you do have my business cards, got my email on there. If you have questions, get in touch with me, either through there or comment on my website.
Can you just say your email?
Alan Black. And my website is alanblackauthor.com. That's ALAN, black, like the color, or lack of color, depending on your point of view.
And your email?
Oh, my email is alblack77, not my age, it's alblack77. It's not the year I was born either. alblack77 @cox.net.